Hey everyone, welcome back to another live community classroom with Michaels. Today we have Marley from the Marley Bird with us ready for another exciting class. Today we'll be crocheting the colourful crochet bunting. My name is Lillian from Yarn Inspirations and I'll be helping with any questions you might have during today's class. Feel free to ask questions in the chat here and we'll be sure that Marley answers them. And as she said, while we'll give you some time to join the class, feel free to let us know where you're watching from. And just a reminder that today's class is being recorded and you can find the recording at michaels.com/classes. Thanks, back to you, Marley.
Awesome. Well, hey, everybody. We're going to be making some colorful crochet bunting today. I've taught this class once before here at Michael's, and a lot of people enjoyed making it because it's a basic granny square, but we're going to make a granny triangle. Pretty easy stuff. And here that we are in March, and it's National Crochet Month, National Crafting Month. It just fits in perfectly that we're making something that you can put on your walls as a celebration piece or just for general decoration. It's really super cute. The cool thing about this is we are making it using Lily Sugar and Cream yarn, which is a basic cotton yarn. You guys have probably seen this and thought to yourself, oh, I thought that was only for dishcloths. Well, that is not the case, ladies and gentlemen. You can use this cotton for anything you want, and it adds a lot of weight to a piece. It absorbs color beautifully, so you're going to see some bright vibrant colors in the cotton, and it just makes a fun piece. So we have some great colors pulled together. This is a free pattern available at yarnspirations.com, and I think that they've put a link to it in the chat. So if you are new to Zoom, make sure you have the chat open. That's where you're going to go and ask any questions during the class itself. And I think that the pattern is going to be placed in there also. Confirm that for me. There it is. There's the pattern. Yay! Ask and you shall receive, everybody. As I'm teaching, obviously, I'll be looking over at my hands, and I will have Lillian from Yarn Inspirations here to help me answer questions in the chat room. So if you happen to have a question or you need me to repeat something or whatever it may be, ask it in the chat room. Lillian will interrupt me if it happens. She's like, hey, we have a great question here, or whatever. So if you need to get my attention for one reason or another, please make sure you ask questions in the chat. Last but not least, I do want to remind you this class is being recorded. So if there is something that you happen to miss, but I have to move on in order to get through the whole class, don't think that you're never going to be able to get that information again. You can always go and rewatch the video, gather all the information, or watch something over and over and over as I'm demonstrating it and to be able to master it. Okay. So a couple things before I jump into class. I start all of my classes off asking that you give yourself a little bit of grace and a little bit of, I want to say freedom to make mistakes. We're doing something new for some of you. You might be relatively new to crochet and only crocheted a couple things, or maybe it's a little bit tricky to find one thing or another as you're going along. That's totally all right. We can mess around with the yarn and the hook as much as we want. We just get to enjoy it that much more, right? And I want to make sure that all of you have fun. All right. So with that, I've pulled up the pattern for myself over here. We're going to come over here to my hands. Hopefully you'll be able to see them just fine. And we will jump in. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces in here today. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to make sure you guys can still hear me and see me and all the good things. I've got a variety of colors here of the Lily Sugar and Cream. So we have 5 different colors. And these are the colors that are used in the bunting. And I apologize, I had the bunting sample, but I sent it back to Your Inspiration. So I don't even have it here with me anymore, but that's okay. We're gonna make ourselves a fun little sample. These pieces are made with all of these colors, and they are made with a basic granny square triangle. And if you're looking at the instructions, you'll notice that the instructions are both written out and in chart format. So you can follow whichever one you prefer. Here in this video, I'm going to follow along with the written instructions so that way I can be sure that I'm using the correct terminology during the video. So I'm going to begin with color A, which says it is the tangerine color. And you would make 14 of these triangles total. Now, if I remember correctly, this yarn, I can pull it from the center. So I'm going to give it a pull and see. All right, maybe not. Maybe I just have to get some yarn guts out here, which is fine. I mean, raise of hands, who gets yarn guts? It's all right. It's not the end of the world to have yarn guts, you guys. You just use it up as you go along. I do want to tell you guys, make sure you have a good pair of scissors as you're working with the lily cotton, because you cannot break it with your hands. Like, it is virtually impossible. So you want to make sure you have some good scissors, so you'll be able to cut it. Okay, so we're going to start off with a slip knot on our hook. So go ahead and make a slip knot. For those of you who don't remember, place the tail of your yarn in the palm of your hand. Take your working yarn, wrap it around your forefinger and your middle finger. And when you come back up, cross over. Once you've done that crossover, rotate your hand over, and you're going to see you have 2 loops on essentially on your fingers. Go underneath the first loop and grab that second loop and pull it through. Take your fingers out, and as you pull those tails, you get yourself a little slip knot. If you have a different way of making a slip knot, that's totally fine. This is just my preferred way to show how to make a slip knot. Once you do that, we're going to chain 4. And I know people are going to ask, this is a basic Susan Bates hook. I just have a handle on it because I crochet so much that if I don't have a handle on my hooks, my hands start to cramp. So this is just a basic hook. I just have a handle on it, okay? All right, so I have chained 4 chains. And what we're going to do is it says we're going to do 3 double crochets in the 4th chain from hook. So you will never count the loop on your hook as a stitch ever. So you'll count 1 of the V's, 2 of the V's, 3 of the V's, 4 of the V's, and you'll go down here and we're going to do 3 double crochet. So yarn over your hook, pierce into that first chain you did, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. All right, we're gonna do that again. So yarn over your hook, go into that same stitch, yarn over your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over your hook, draw through 2, yarn over your hook, draw through 2. So that was 2. Remember we have 3 of them. Yarn over our hook, go into the stitch, yarn over your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over your hook, draw through 2, yarn over your hook, draw through 2. All right, so all of that was done in the 4th chain from hook, and you'll see there in the instructions it says that counts as 4 double crochets, which means these skipped 3 stitches we did right there, those count as a double crochet. All right, now we're going to chain 2. And in the instructions, you'll see it says 4 double crochet, chain 2 twice in the same 4th chain from hook. So in this same chain right there that we worked into, we're going to do another set of 4 double crochets and a chain 2, and another set of double crochets and a chain 2. So I yarn over my hook, go into that same chain, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. So that was 1. I'm going to get 3 more here. And I'm going to move a little bit quicker here to make sure that I can get through these. This is the center of our triangle. That's what we are creating here. So if you need to pause and count, I always find where my chain 2 is, and then I count my post to be able to count how many I've done. So there are my 4 doubles. Now I need to chain 2. And all of those instructions were inside some parentheses. And that lets me know that the number outside the parentheses is the number of times I will do this. So I'm going to do it twice. That was once. I need to do it 1 more time. So I yarn over my hook, go into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. I'm going to get 3 more double crochet here. And then it says chain 2. Don't forget that chain 2, okay? All right, now it says join with the slip stitch in the top of the chain 4, fasten off. So essentially, these skip stitches that we skipped right there when we started, as I said, those count as a double crochet. So it's telling us to join with the slip stitch right here to the top here. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3 chains because we worked into the 4th one, remember? So this 3rd one, that's the one we're going to join with a slip stitch. I tend to grab the legs, like the V, if I'm going to work into it with a slip stitch. It's just one of my little quirks that I do. But you don't have to do that. You can go right down and just grab one side if you want. So I've inserted my hook into the chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then we're going to pull that loop through the one on our hook. So that is a join with a slip stitch. What you are going to see here is we have 3 sets of chain 2s. You see that? We have a chain 2 right there, chain 2 right there, chain 2 right there. And so we have ourselves a nice triangle to start here. Now it says to fasten off. That just means we're done using this color. So when I fasten off, I usually will cut the yarn. I always leave 4 to 6 inches of a tail, always, always. And then once I do that slip stitch, you can just pull that through. I like to chain 1 and pull through and just give that a tug. Okay, so we're done with that color. So that was round 1. How are we doing? I'm looking for questions. I got this on Etsy, everybody. Everybody always asks, and I'm so sorry. Part of me wishes I could use a different hook, so I didn't have to bother you guys with it, but I can't use any other hook right now. All right, so we're going to use the hot blue. I think that's this one. Is this hot blue? Yes, this is hot blue. So let's see if we can get this out without too many yarn guts. What do you guys think? All right, we're going to go in here. Oh, goodness. It's like a treasure. It's like the Cracker Jack box. Wow, that's not too bad. Could be worse. Could be worse. All right, so round 2, it says join B with a slip stitch to the first chain 2 space. So the first chain 2 space would have been this one right here, right? So it says join with a slip stitch to the first chain 2 space. So we're going to insert our hook directly into that space, yarn over your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through that loop. That's a slip stitch, okay? Now it says we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and that's going to count as a double crochet. If you had trouble finding the top of your chains before, you can always use a stitch marker. Place it into that chain right behind the loop on your hook at this point, and that'll let you know that that's the first stitch you did, and that's where you're going to join at the end of the round, okay? So it's just a little helper there. You don't have to do that, but it helps if you want to. Once you've done this chain 3, we're going to do 3 more double crochets, chain 2, and then 4 more double crochets all into this space, okay? So I'm going to yarn over my hook, go into the same space, yarn over my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. So that was 1. I want to do that a total of 3 times for this first set. Now, as I'm creating these, I'm going to chat with you guys and explain why I grab my loops like that as I'm pulling through. And some of you would be like, oh, I can't see the stitch when you do that. Well, I'm doing nothing different, okay? So I'm not doing anything different as far as how to stitch. But as I go into this space and I pull up a loop, as I yarn over and I grasp essentially the bottom of those chains and then pull through, it allows me to control the stretch on the stitches as I'm making them. And it makes my stitches a little bit more nice and tidy. So then I would yarn over, I usually grab the bottom of those and I pull through, and it just makes things nice and neat. I'm going to chain 2. And then I'm going to put 4 double crochets in here. Did you notice how I just scooted those double crochets over? Because they're not like attached to anything. They're just in that space. So you can scooch them across that chain. And we're just going to put our 4 right here. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. So we did a chain 2 and our 4. So that is our first set of parentheses in the instructions. Now it says to chain 1, skip 4 double crochet, and then we're going to do 4 double crochet, chain 2, 4 double crochet in the next chain 2 space. So essentially, we're going to do what we did right here, over here into this chain 2 space. So I yarn over, come over here to this whole space and just do my 4 doubles. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, chain 2, and then do 4 more. Again, just scooch those over if you run out of room. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, chain 1. I'm going to go over here to the last chain 2 and do that all again. So nothing new. We're just going to the last chain 2. We're going to do that whole set of stitches once again. Finish with your chain 1. Then you're going to join with a slip stitch to the first chain 3. Well, conveniently, we marked it, so we don't really have to look for it anymore, right? Because I have it marked right there. So all I'm going to do is come over here, insert my hook into where that stitch is that's marked, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull that through. All right. And then I'm going to fasten off this color. So I cut my yarn, leaving a nice long tail. I essentially chain 1 and then just pull that chain all the way through and up. Remove my marker. And it's at this point, you can see we're starting to get a nice triangle. Okay. If you are familiar and comfortable with the magic ring, you could, but honestly, there's no need for this. It's a nice little delicate hole right there, and it's really not that big of a deal. Now, I will be honest with you guys, it's at this point in my own, if this were mine, if I were working on this on my own, I would probably start tucking in my ends at this point because I hate working with my ends out all over the place, but you can just leave them as they are right now. And we go on to round 3. Any questions so far? Can you repeat the explanation for the parentheses in the written instructions? Sure. Here's the best way I can explain those. So we're going to be going to hot pink, and I'm going to talk as I'm getting this color ready. If you can think all the way back to when you were in algebra class, and you remember when you were in algebra class and you had a series of instructions that were written inside of a parentheses, and it said, everything you had to do inside the parentheses, it was multiplied by the number outside the parentheses, right? When you're reading, oh, look at that, y'all. Look, no yarn barf. I got to go buy a lottery ticket. Oh, wait, I think I might. Nope, I'm good. Okay. So when you're reading the parentheses, everything that's inside the parentheses, you will do for the number of times written outside the parentheses. So whenever you see something like, for example, in round 1, where it said 4 double crochet, chain 2, end parentheses, and it said twice, that just meant you're going to do that 2 times because it told us to do everything inside those parentheses 2 times. And then it proceeded to tell us where to do it in the same 4th chain from hook. Does that make sense? All right, so round 3, we're going to join our color C with the slip stitch to the first chain 2 space. So once again, here's our first chain 2 space. Wants us to join with a slip stitch. So we go in, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, pull through. That's a slip stitch. Okay.
Melly, do you mind, sorry to interrupt, do you mind if I jump in with a quick request? There's
sure.
Just a shadow in the top right-hand corner from your phone, which is catching your hands a little bit. Are you able to just work a little bit more to the right? Oh, yeah.
I can go like that. Is that better?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
No, not at all. Thank you so much.
All right. Yeah. No problem. Let me take a drink real quick. I'm sorry. It wasn't there earlier. How did that move? It wasn't there. We tested all of this. Okay, so is that better like that? We good?
Yeah, I think that looks great.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you.
All right, no problem. All right, so we've joined with the slip stitch and we carry on. So we will chain 3 just like we did before. So 1, 2, 3. If you want to use a marker, you can absolutely use that marker into that last chain you just created. It just really helps to find where you're supposed to join at the end of the row. I use markers all the time. Just watch me on YouTube and you'll know. Okay, so at this point, it now says we're going to do 3 doubles, chain 2, 4 doubles, all into the same space. So just like we did before, all right? So I'm going to put my 3 doubles. So there's 1 and 2, oops, and 3. Got to get more yarn out. See, when you don't have yarn barf out, then it's all stuck in there. Then we're going to chain 2. And I'm going to do 4 in here. So I'm scooching that over. I'm going to do 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, you see that? I've just continued the corner right there. Okay, so now we're going to chain 1, skip the next 4 double crochet. So chain 1, skip the next 4 double crochet, and do 3 double crochet into this chain 1 space. So I'll yarn over my hook. I'm going to go into this big space right here, and I'm going to do 3 double crochet. So there's 1 and 2 and 3. I'm going to pause here for a second just so you can see again what I did. So because we cannot very easily, without making this cup around, jump from this corner to this corner, we have to fill in our space right here because we're starting to get it bigger, right? We're starting to grow our work, and that's why we need to start filling in spaces that weren't there before. This space was not there before. We created it as we jumped from this corner to this corner. And if we were to continue making this triangle bigger and bigger and bigger, we would have a space right here to fill, and we'd have a space right here to fill. Like each round, we'd have another set of chain 1s to start filling in, okay? So as we go from this corner and we're gonna jump over to this corner, we have to make sure we fill in this chain 1 space. That's what we're doing. And that's that's just the quintessential nature of making a granny square or a granny triangle or a hexagon or whatever you're making. Sometimes it's not a chain 1, sometimes it's just a space between that double and that double, but the technique is the same. Okay, everybody with me on that? All right, so we just did 3 double crochets. We're going to chain 1, trying to make sure I'm not out of frame. I'm in a different position now, so I'm not used to this. All right, so we chained 1, skip the next 4, and then you'll see once again you have parentheses. So everything that's written inside those parentheses, you'll do it for the number time outside the parentheses. Well, there's not a number out there, so this would be 1 time, but it tells you where to do it. So we'll do everything inside those parentheses in the next chain 2 space. All right, so this is how you read a pattern. So we're going to do the 4 doubles. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then chain 2. And then we have to do 4 more doubles. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so all of this was written in those parentheses, and we put all of that in that chain 2 space. Now we have to chain 1, skip 4, and we have to go into this space now. We're going to do 3 doubles. So 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1. Now we're over here to this chain 2 space. So we're going to skip those 4. And right here, we're going to do the same thing we've been doing in our corners, right? Because every time we go to the corner, we're working these. It's essentially an increase, you guys. So we're going to do all of the instructions in this corner. And if you're reading the instructions, this is where it tells you to repeat from star. So we have just went back into that same set of instructions, found our asterisk, and then we are repeating from our asterisk. So this is everything that was written inside of those parentheses. All right, chain 2, do 4 more. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 1, skip 4, over here to this space here. We're gonna do our 3, chain 1, and now we're gonna join with a slip stitch and do that stitch right there, right? We're gonna join with the slip stitch and do our 3rd chain, which we marked already, so we don't have to stress too much about it. Just find it, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull that loop through the one on your hook, and we're gonna fasten this one off too. Give it a nice tug. Take your marker out if you had one. And this is where we are so far. This is, I totally would be weaving in my ends. Do yourself a favor. If you're going to do this, weave in your ends after you finish a full triangle. Okay, make sure you weave them in because it just makes things so much easier. Okay, so round 4. Here we go. 4th round and then a 5th round. 4th round is color D. Color D is wine. Is that right? Color D is wine. Which one's wine? I don't have wine. I have teal and I have red. So we're going with red, y'all. And this one is this. Oh, nope. See, it gets ya. You see that little tab? How many of you have done that? How many of you have pulled the tab thinking it's the center and it's not? And you're like, oh, shoot. Yeah, I see you out there. I see all of you out there who are like, yeah, look at this, guys. Second one. No yarn barf. I'm going to buy 2 lottery tickets. Okay, so yeah, all the time, C. Morgan says, all the time. Emily says yes as well. All right, so 4th round, let's just read through the instructions real quick. Join with the slip stitch at the first chain 2 space, which is right here. And then we do the same thing. It'll be 3 doubles, chain 2, 4 doubles. And then just as I mentioned, we can't directly go from this corner to this corner. We have to begin to fill these spaces. So we'll do 3 double crochet there, chain 1, 3 double crochet there, chain 1, and then we'll be to the corner. We'll work our increase again. And then once again, we'll fill the space, we'll be at the corner, fill the space, and then we'll join. So there's nothing new on this round that you guys need to know. It's just more of the stuff we've just done. So let's get through this round really quickly here. So I would join with the slip stitch. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through, and then begin with the chain 3. And let's go. So all of you who are working along with me here, you guys are gonna be like, let's see how fast I can go. I will be honest with you, when I'm working with cotton, I tend to go very slow. Yes, this is slow for me because it doesn't have much stretch as you're working with it, so it actually pulls on my hook a little bit, and it gives me a little bit of grief. Yes, mine tends to split a little bit as well. These ones have been really good for me though, so I have not had any trouble with splitting. As a beginner, I don't know what yarn barf was, so I threw it away. Oh no! Oh my gosh, yes. So, you know, it's always funny to me, like yarn barf, there are always people out there that are just like, oh my gosh, I got yarn barf. And, you know, they get upset about it. To me, I'm like, that's all right. I just get to use that part up first. And I kind of use it as a gauge of, okay, I can't get up for my crocheting or my knitting until I've used all of this up. So the more barf I have in my skein, I guess, that just gives me more knitting or crocheting time. At least, try and, what is it, make lemonade out of lemons sort of thing. Yarn bark really doesn't bother me too much. It's all still just usable yarn, so that's always great. Now, you notice I'm just cruising along here, and I'm not even like really looking at the pattern anymore, because after so many rows, I understand what the established pattern is. And so I can recognize it when I get to the corners. I know exactly what I'm doing there. I'm working this increase to be able to turn the corner. And then as I'm going along my row to the next corner, I just want to make sure I fill all of those chain one spaces with 3 double crochets. And I'm separating them with chain ones. And if you've never done granny stitches or granny squares or anything like that before, there are some granny stitches or granny stitch patterns, or I like to call them granny clusters or granny sets. Actually, I call them granny sets more than granny clusters, because it's not a cluster. And that's, gets a little bit more technical than everything, but I call them granny sets. But sometimes, oh, right there, I just did it. Sometimes you will go from one granny set to the next without a chain one. But this pattern does call for the chain one. So hopefully I haven't forgotten any, but if you do forget some, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. You just make sure you work around it as necessary. All right, I'm up here to the next corner. Moving right along. I love that Rebecca's like, that's horrifying. Throwing away your yarn barf without knowing. You know what? But I bet you're not the only one that did that, Emily. I bet you're not the only one that did that. Because, if you don't know, you don't know. That's totally understandable. Totally understandable. Let me get some more yarn here. Chain one and keep going. Lillian, how's it looking out there?
Pretty good. We do have a question here for when you kicked off at the start, from Emily, asking, in the beginning, when is it ideal to use a magic ring versus chaining and joining to make a ring?
I usually just follow the pattern. I'm not a big magic ring fan. It has its purpose and place, but for the most part, I tend to follow whatever the pattern designer wrote out, because there's a reason he or she wrote it the way they did. It could be that maybe you really like a magic circle and like being able to pull it really nice and close, but maybe the designer has a different reason for it. So for the most part, I tend to follow what the designer has written, unless I absolutely agree or disagree with it. Then I go rogue, which is why I became a designer, because I tended to go rogue a lot. Can I get an amen out there from all of you? So yeah, I know that really doesn't answer your question very, very well, but it's true. If you want your center of your triangle to be much more closed than that, and you prefer dealing with a magic circle, then you absolutely could do that and just make changes to the pattern to make it, good for that. But for the most part, I just follow whatever the designer wrote when that's needed. All right, so let's see, I'm chaining one. I didn't even join with my slip stitch or my marker, because I got so excited just going. So I found it, did my slip stitch. I want to finish it. Give that a pull. All right. So that's where I am. So that is my 4th round. If I wanted to keep this going, if I wanted to make it even bigger, now that you guys understand the established pattern, you could essentially just keep going, right? Because to start here with your corner, just like we've been starting the whole time. And then anytime there's that chain one, you just fill that in with 3 and 3 and 3. See how it is increased? Then you're at a corner, you do your corner, then 3 and 3 and 3, then a corner, 3 and 3 and 3, and then join. So you could keep making this bigger and bigger and bigger as much as you wanted. All right. All right. So 5th round. Here we go. The 5th round. This one is a little bit different than the others. So we're finally to something where you're learning a little bit different here. Right, so that yarn barf isn't too bad, right? That's not so bad. But we're at the teal color here. And here we go. Is my shadow still out of the way? Are we good? I'm trying not to have it bother.
You're looking good.
All right. Join E with a slip stitch to the first chain 2 space. So let's go to that chain 2 space and we're going to join with a slip stitch. Here we go. Join with a slip stitch. Now it says chain 1. This does not count as a stitch. I always love it when they tell me that, whether it counts or not. All right, so chain 1 does not count as a stitch. Now it says there's the asterisk that we know we will go back to. And inside the parenthesis, it says do 2 single crochet, chain 2, 2 single crochet, all into this chain 2 space. So there's 1. And so I will tell you that first one is going to be our first stitch of the round. So I'm marking it so I know to come back to it. And then here is 2. And then we'll chain 2. And then we're going to come over here and do 2 more. So there's 1 and 2. All right, so that's single crochet, 2 single crochets, chain 2, single crochet into this chain 2 space. Now we're going to chain 1, single crochet in each of the next 4 doubles. So we're actually going to work into these stitches. So let's see if I go, this is the first double. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's the single crochet in the next 4 double crochet, 1 single crochet in the next chain 1 space. So I'm going to put 1 single crochet in this space, 1 single crochet in the next 4 double, 1 single crochet in the space once, and then so essentially we're going all the way across until we get over here to the corner where we will do 2 singles, chain 2, 2 singles. Does that make sense? So I'm just going to single crochet to the next corner. And whenever you get to the chain 1 space, you want to make sure you have a single crochet in there. Oop. Now this color is getting splitty on me. Who was it who jinxed me earlier? Who was talking about splitty yarns? I'm going to get up here to the corner. And in this corner, this is where I'm repeating from star. So I will do my 2 singles, chain 2, and then do 2 singles. Yeah, Emily. Geez, Emily. All right, so we have our chain 2s there. So essentially, I'm going to do this all again, all the way around. And so I'm just putting this final edging on our bunting here. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going here. Rebecca says her red was the worst. Red wasn't bad for me. This teal one, though, it is giving me trouble. You know what? Sometimes some colors are worse than others. And it's all right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still just yarn. It just takes a little bit more time to work with. So I get to enjoy it that much more. Right? That's what I'm going to tell myself. Here we go. It's cheaper than therapy. All right. Here we go. Oops, oops, oops. Can I just tell you guys, it feels like I'm going in slow motion. Is everybody working really hard, Lillian?
Yep, I can see lots of hands moving.
Oh, good. That's always a bonus.
Mhm.
Oof.
And when you're ready, we do have a couple of questions here.
Yeah, you go ahead. You can ask me and I'll try and answer as I'm working.
Okay, great. There's a question here. If one placed 4 DC in each chain one space instead of 3 DC, the shape would be a rounded triangle? Question mark.
Yeah, it would be more cupped in. So the double crochet, the number of double crochet we're doing allows us to get a more uniform sort of look. So if we were to just do one double crochet into these spaces instead of the 3, it if you did the one double crochet and only the one chain, it's going to pull in. If you only wanted one double crochet, you'd have to have more chains here. Because if you notice, the double crochet from this, the chain 1 and the double crochet from there make up that space there. And then that double makes up this space. And then you have this double, that chain, that double makes up that space. So that's what allows it to lay flat. Hopefully that answers the question.
Mm-hmm. Kind of on a related question, Eva asks, being a granny concept, how do you prevent the triangle/square curling or bubbling, like not lying flat?
So one of those is, it's almost exactly what I just talked about. You want to make sure your stitches are not getting tighter as you're going along. One thing that I have a lot of people accidentally do is they'll make their chains super tight. So then that cups in. It doesn't allow for that space to make up for to lay flat. The other thing is you always want to make sure you're giving yourself enough stitches at the corners so that they don't cup up on you. If you find that you are crocheting too tight, you could always go up a crochet hook size or 2. Don't be afraid to go up a couple sizes if you need to. Oops, sorry. I told you this is one of those things. I totally told, I have my phone on do not disturb, and that was a prime example of somebody just trying to call me that shouldn't be able to get through. I don't understand. So I apologize, everybody, but we're good here. I was saying something. Don't be afraid to go up a hook size or even 2 hook sizes if you need to. Okay, I'm just going to put another one here because, all right, so guys, I can't hardly get into that stitch right there. So I'm just going to put another single crochet into the chain 1 space and make it so it's like taking the place of where the double is there, because I can't get into it. You can do the same. I'm just showing you that I'm fudging it along. All right, so I'm coming all the way around here to the top, and I'm going to join with a slip stitch to the top of the first single crochet, which is right here. So I'm going to go right into that, pull through, pull through. Did I answer her question? Hopefully.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, all right, I thought I did. All right, so that there is my triangle. I mean, and it's at this point, if I was not weaving in my ends as I went along, it would be at this point that I would weave in my ends. I do want to show you what I would do for this particular piece. Let me get myself my yarn needle out. So I always turn it to the back side, and I usually will start on the bottom. And I know somebody is going to ask, why not just crochet over your ends? Okay, one, you could do that because it's a bunting and it's not really going to be used a lot or worn a lot or probably even washed really. You could just crochet over your ends and not really worry about it too much. For me, I am an anti-crochet over your ends person because, and here's the reason why. As my kids were smaller and I got some of the most beautiful crochet afghans given to me, made with squares and hexagons and such. And the minute I washed them, because the crocheter crocheted over the ends, they were not woven in properly and they started to pop out all over the place. So I always take the time to weave in my ends versus cutting corners, especially if you're going to make something special. I mean, to me, I always want my stuff to look like it's, I guess, I don't know, like I want it to look as professional as possible, I guess. So for me, like you saw that first one, I kind of went around the center there, but I went back and forth in different directions. This one, I'm going right down the post of the stitch. All right. And then I kind of go around, and I just don't go in just a circle, because that's no good either. Those of you who have done magic circle that has come undone before, you know that that comes undone as well. So I will usually just go like that, and then I pop it back through. And because we're dealing with cotton, and because this is a bunting, you could tie a knot with it too on the back side. That would be perfectly fine. But if this were something else, like a blanket or something, I don't add knots to my crochet or my knitting. It's just, I don't do it. But this is what you would do as far as weaving in your ends. And this is why I do it as I go along, because it feels like it takes forever to do if I wait till the end, especially if you wait till the end of making all of the pieces. The other thing is, you'll notice I'm trying to keep the color within the same color of the stitch. Okay, so I just make sure I stay within the same color of the stitch that I'm weaving in. And then I just snip it nice and short. I want to put all these in as quickly as I possibly can, so that way it looks decent. Yes, cotton can fade a little bit with time and after being washed. That's one of the beautiful things about this, like this bunting, as I mentioned. It's very unlikely, I mean, unless you get some sort of a party that's just out of control, and maybe you're just splashing Kool-Aid around crazy and you've got to wash your bunting. For the most part, this is probably just going to go on the wall and be pretty generically there. You don't have to do a whole lot of work with it. But it is washable. Yeah, the color, it might fade, it might not. I honestly, I don't know, because I have not washed these colors, so I'm not sure at all. But hey, I love the way it looks. Here's a little tip though, is if you don't want to use cotton to make this, if you say you had Super Saver in your house in these colors, you're like, I really want to make that. Can I make it using Super Saver? Absolutely, you could do that. You don't have to use cotton at all. This is just a great way to really use up that cotton, especially if you're tired of making dishcloths and you want to just do something else. This is kind of a fun thing to do. Yeah, there's that. I mean, speaking of dishcloths, like you could keep making this triangle bigger and you could turn it into a dishcloth if you wanted to, right? The great thing about crochet and dishcloths is that crochet naturally is sort of, I call it kind of knotty, you know what I mean? Like it kind of has some texture to it. It's kind of thick. So you have some built-in scrub to a crochet dishcloth. And so if you wanted to turn these triangles into dishcloths, you could do that. You can see here, I'm going through weaving these ends. I more than anything want to show you how quickly it can be done. So that way you can no longer just be like, I don't want to weave in ends, it takes so long. Really, it's not so bad. I mean, it can be kind of soothing, I think. But I always just go back and forth in several different directions, making sure that I'm grabbing yarn, tuck it and go. How we doing, Lillian? People like, look at her weaving in all of her ends.
True dedication.
Yes, I know. I will tell you though, you'll notice I'm using a bent tip tapestry needle and it's metal. I highly recommend the metal needles to weave in your ends, not a plastic one. I am not a fan of the plastic ones whatsoever. I like to have some substance to my needles so that way I can really get through the stitches or pierce through my yarn. Sometimes I will pierce through the yarn. It depends what fibers I'm using. And then the bent tip itself helps to really get underneath to get in where I want to go. So I love these bent tip tapestry needles for sure. They work great. If you're not going to use a bent tip tapestry needle, I like chenille needles. Do I have one here? I don't know. This is, I think I have one. So like a chenille needle, like here's a chenille needle. It's super, super, super sharp, but I have a large eye to it so I can get things in here. But this allows me to really pierce through the stitches. And I love using that also. So if I don't have my bent tip tapestry needle, I will use a chenille needle, which can be found at Michael's, because that's where I bought those. So you absolutely could do that. I'm gonna get this in. I'm almost done here. Because once you're done with this, guys, I mean, this is basically it, right? Once you weave in on your ends, it says proceed in rows as follows. So as you're going through all of this, when you're going to join them all together, the very last join through is a series of single crochets, right? So the last single crochet round we did here is essentially a setup for the next part of the pattern. And I think what I want to do the most, I'm probably going to do a screen share to show the pattern so we can talk about it. I think I just wove that in, but I can't remember, so I'm going to just do it a couple more. If you're looking at your pattern itself, you can see that the top of the bunting, it isn't just like just these triangles as this, and then they're all just kind of strung together. You'll notice it has a little bit of substance to the top with the teal color, right? It has a little bit more to it. Man, that's a really pretty set of scraps right there. So as you are finishing this, as this goes on, you would join E with a slip stitch to the chain 2 space. So here's your chain 2 space, right? So you join it here, and then it says you're going to go ahead and chain 1 single crochet in that same space, and then single crochet all the way across this space and single crochet in the next chain 2 space, and then turn. So we would turn our work. We're going to single crochet back and then fasten off. So it's really, you're just doing 2 rows of single crochet. Does that make sense to everybody? Do you need me to show you that? I mean, I can, if you want me to show it to you, I can show it to you. We have a little bit of time. Why not? So if I come here to the chain 2 space, and it can be any of the spaces, right? It doesn't have to be the first chain 2 space. It can be any space you want. All right, so just go to a chain 2 space, join with your slip stitch using the same color, chain 1, single crochet in the chain 2 space, and then you're going to single crochet across this whole row. And we're just getting ourselves something to it. See, 1, 2, and just keep going. Any questions, Lillian, as I'm working?
Yeah, we have one here from Liz. Let me just pop back and find it. Liz asked, is it normal for the first double crochet stitch to be, sorry, I'll start again. Is it normal for the first double crochet stitch in a cluster to be a bit longer? If not, what do I do to prevent it?
So one thing you could do is, when I was talking about holding those stitches at the bottom of the post to make sure they don't overstretch, that is one thing you could do. So what tends to happen is you'll try to do the double crochet, you'll yarn over and you'll come over here. And as you're doing it, it starts to get real long, okay? But then if you do it where you control the strands as you're pulling them up so they don't get too big, you can control how squatty it is. See how, or not how squatty, the height of it. See how this one's much taller, kind of longer and loose. This one, I controlled it a lot more. I made sure that each of the strands were the same size as my hook. So one thing you could do is, especially on that first one, the first thing to do is make sure that the loop around your hook is the same size as your hook. It hasn't stretched out like this. And then just control your strands to make sure they're all the same size as your hook. Does that help? Hopefully.
Gloria also asks, should we block the triangles because hers is a little wonky?
You know what? It wouldn't hurt, especially since they're cotton, that they will hold their shape. You could block them, and you could probably use a little sugar water on them to kind of stiffen them up a little bit if you wanted to. I mean, that's not written in the pattern, but if you wanted to give it a try, it wouldn't. I don't think it would hurt any at all. All right, so I just did that. So this is where I would turn and chain 1, or chain 1 and turn. It does not matter. And then you just single crochet back on all of these. All right. And so once this is done, as far as the finishing row, the instructions say that with C, it says you chain 20, and that's your tie. So if you wanted it longer, you could chain longer if you wanted to. And then it says with the right side facing, so not the side I'm on right now, but the opposite side, you would go ahead and you would work single crochets across this entire triangle, and then you would just continue on to the next triangle, and then continue on to the next triangle. And so that will join your triangles together. And then the following row, you would use E again, and you would just work another row of single crochets on top of that row of single crochets you just did. So it just makes the triangle itself a little bit more substantial than just a row of chains connecting them, which you could do if you wanted to, but it's totally up to you. As you can see here, it just gives a little bit extra work here to go in to do these couple rows of single crochet just to finish off this triangle. And the pattern is written to have, I think, 14 of these. So you could make them longer. You could do as many as you want, really. But once you get to the end, again, it's another end to weave in. But hey, that's all right. We know how to do that now. So if I can get this through. All right, so that would be my wrong side. This would be my right side. And if you don't know, you can see kind of how pretty these stitches are on this side versus this side. It looks like it's like the backs of the stitches. It's kind of, to me, these look like pearl bumps to me. And then on the right side, they just kind of look like smooth V's. So they look like knit side to me. I don't know. It's a personal thing, I guess. But you can see here where I did the 2 extra rows up here at the top. So I would have the right side facing me. And to join it, I would pick my color C, which is my pink. And I would start off by chaining 20 and then just work across this whole row. And then if I had another one of these over here, I would just continue on working across that row. And it's pretty easy. And then if you wanted to add fringe, you totally could add fringe down here at the bottom just to give yourself a little bit of extra whimsy to the whole piece. All right. All right, so I'm going to go back here to my face and I want to see all of you. How many of you made these cute little pieces? Let me see your piece. Hold it up for me. Look at you. Look at that. Oh, that's beautiful. Gloria, that's gorgeous. Swancha, that's great. That's such a good job. Emily, I want to see yours, Emily. You guys did such a good job. These are so much fun to do. You don't have to use these colors. You can use any color you want. You could do like Christmas holiday colors. Pauline, that's beautiful. Michelle, that's beautiful. I love it. You can use any colors you want. Maybe you have a I don't know, a baby shower and you want to do like yellows and greens and purples and blues and pinks and kind of all these pastel-y colors. You could absolutely do that and have something fun. I would love to see what you make for your bunting, what colors you choose. If you do make it, please share with us. Use hashtag yarnspirations or hashtag make it with Michaels. You want to share with me specifically Serenity, that's gorgeous. If you want to share it with me specifically, make sure you use hashtag Marley Bird, or I'm on Instagram as the Marley Bird, so you can always do that. And I always tell people that I'll smash your like button. Lynn, that's a beautiful job. Great colors, my friends. Oh, you guys are so, you know what? Congratulations. All of you, go out, give yourself a gold sticker because you did such a good job today. I'm very proud of you. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to hand it back to my friend and we're going to say goodbye.
Thanks so much, Marley. And thanks everyone for joining us today for this live community classroom with Michaels. We would love to see your work, so share your work with hashtag Make It With Michaels and hashtag Yarnspirations. And just a reminder that you can find more classes on michaels.com and the recording of today's class at michaels.com/classes. Thanks everyone. Thanks, Marley.
Bye, thanks.